I'm with Diane Nelson here in Jerusalem. Now, Diane, you're from the US and you just arrived in Israel. Was it a miracle that you just got here in time?
It was a major miracle. I was kind of numb to the fact that I was actually on my way. And then when I found out that I had just slipped in within a 10-hour window, I kind of got overwhelmed with just thankfulness and awareness of God's intervention to get me here.
So they closed the border just after you got in, did they?
Yes, I arrived on the 27th in the evening, and then I woke up to the news on the 28th that they were closing down again. So if I had been 8-10 hours later, I would be on my way back to the States.
And this is because of the new variant that they found?
Yes.
Yeah. Now, what things did you have to go to fly to Israel during this COVID season?
It was sort of like a video game, I felt like. So first, I had to get a PCR test within 72 hours of my departure. And that's tricky because I live out in the country, and so there's not a lot of testing sites. I did have one nearby, and I went and got my test. It was like within the 72-hour window. It was 70 hours. And I was waiting and checking the website to see that the lab got my results and what they would be. And the next day, the lab still didn't have my results. And then it was the day before I was supposed to leave, and the lab still didn't even have my results, let alone give me my results. And I was getting very nervous, to say the least, because in 24 hours I was supposed to be on a plane and I had to have this test. So it was Thanksgiving Day, which is a very special day in the States, but I left any turkey dinner plans and drove into the city to get a rapid test, PCR. And luckily, I found a place that was open, and I got that. And true to their word, I had my negative result within 2 hours. Then I took a deep breath because 24 hours before entry, I had to fill out an entry application with Israel Health Ministry and be approved. So at the 23-hour mark, I went online. I didn't know what they were going to want from me, and they said they would decide within 5-10 minutes. So I prayed, and I just knew this was another hurdle. Would I make it? And still at this time, I'm not really committed to packing because I still don't know if I'm going to be on an airplane. So I fill out the application, and it was pretty straightforward, and uploaded the documents that they wanted. And sure enough, within like 2 minutes, I was just online and they gave me my approval. And so then I thought, wow, am I really going to get to go? And my husband said, I think you are. So then the next day, of course, I had to go to the airport, and they wouldn't give me my boarding passes online because you have to go through another screening at the airport, because they have to check that you have the right documents that Israel wants before you get on the airplane. And so I told my husband, please wait for me in case they say no. So I'm in line, the agent comes up, sees where I'm going, looks at my documents, it was real quick, and gave me my boarding passes. So then I was like, wow, I think I'm going to Israel. Told my husband goodbye, get on the plane. But the next connection was the flight to Tel Aviv. So I know how the screening process can go when you're going actually into Ben Gurion. There's a lot of security questions. The screening is heightened. So I thought, okay, will I make this hurdle? Again, it's like playing a video game. And so the screening was quick. They saw my documents, that I had the PCR test, that I had the approval from the country, and they didn't even really look. The screening was less than it's ever been. It was weird, and it was quick. So I found myself on the plane to Tel Aviv, and that's when I really saw, I think I'm going to Israel. But then I still had the airport, Ben Gurion airport hurdle. So I got into Ben Gurion, and the passport control usually takes a while. It took like less than 2 minutes. I thought, am I in the right country? But I went through it quick, and then I had to do another PCR test in Ben Gurion, and I had prepaid for it. So if you prepay, it's quicker and cheaper. And there were no lines. I just went, got the PCR test, and that was it. So then I had to go into isolation until that PCR test the results came to me negative. So I made it through Ben Gurion, and there I was.
Did the original test that you'd done, did it actually come through in time?
Good question. No, it came through the day I landed in.
Wow.
Yeah, so if I hadn't gone and gotten that rapid test, I would not have been able to even come.
Wow.
Yeah.
So have you seen God working through all of this?
Well, I think he's the one who just got me here. As you hear all these crazy things, I just did what I could, and I really prayed, like I really, really wanted to pray, God, get me there. But I really was at a place where, God, if you don't want me to go, close the door. And if you want me to go, it's up to you, because it's a balagan.
How long have you been waiting to actually come here?
Well, I got my first plane ticket, because I usually come a couple times a year. It's like, it's part of my life.
Yeah.
And so as soon as there was some hint of opening, I can't even remember when that was.
November the 1st, I think.
No, even before, like a year ago,
Yeah.
things weren't real solid. The lockdown, everything was still kind of, what are we doing? And there was a possibility. Maybe it was a delusional optimism on my part, but I bought a plane ticket. And of course, then there was lockdown, and thankfully the plane ticket is no charge to change it. So I could change it. So anytime they were saying we might open, I changed my plane ticket to that day. And by the time I actually ended up coming a week or so ago, I had changed my plane ticket 10 times.
Wow.
Which is probably why I was like in shock that I actually was able to come.
Well,
Yeah.
and you didn't get charged for any of those changes?
No, it's very cool. Yeah, it was during the beginning of COVID, and the airline had this policy, and so I didn't want to give up that ticket because I was able to change as many times as I wanted.
And what are you going to be doing while you're here in Israel?
That's always a good question. When I first started coming 11 years ago, I wanted to be real organized and know exactly what I was doing, but I've learned, as I've said to you before, coming to Israel, you don't have plans. First of all, because everything here is always changing. Life here is very fluid, but also I've learned that God has a plan, and mine don't matter. He always has something very interesting. I mean, better than what I could ever imagine. So already I've only been out of isolation for a few days. So already I've been working from 9 in the morning till 7 at night, and I'm working with people who just need extra help, elderly. I'm working with the Damari Gypsy Center, and there's some really neat projects there that I'm going to be helping the director with. For example, today, this is just a fun thing. I'm going to go and decorate for Christmas for the children who come there. So just working with people, helping them however they might need.
Now, COVID struck Israel, and we've had lockdowns, and people have died. Will people need counseling and just an opportunity to talk?
Well, yes, of course. This is a trauma for pretty much everyone in the world. And coming here, just the few days I've been here, people are just pouring out their heart, their frustration. You know, it's brought a lot of anxiety, and people who don't know God, it's harder for them, because they don't have anything to hope for. They don't have any place to go for comfort or peace. And so they become angry and frustrated, and then they take it out on each other. And so the suffering even increases, besides the loss of income, of daily life, of family from being able to visit, from just your your whole life has changed. It's really hard on people, and they need to be able to talk and to share and just to process.
Is it important that people do talk?
Oh yeah, because it's the only way to, it's a valve, a relief valve. And if you don't get that, you'll just explode internally, and the depression and the anger and the hopelessness will grow. But as you talk about these things, you can comfort one another and encourage one another and somehow understand you're not alone in this. And sometimes just understanding that you're not the only one feeling this way can really be helpful.
Over the last year or so, people have been asking you, where's God in all of this?
It's interesting because some of the comments I've had is along those lines is, why is God allowing this to happen to me? I follow him, I trust him. Why am I suffering like this? Why am I losing everything? And then on the other hand, a lot of people are saying, this seems to be the hand of God. A perfect comment about it was David Pileggi. I listen to him online when I'm in the United States because I really want to be here. And David Pileggi is the pastor at Christ Church in the Old City. And so he had a teaching during Sukkot. And he put it perfectly. And I've heard many believers kind of echo this line of thought, that the pandemic is God's great shofar to all the world to wake up. And so I think a lot of people, this is how they're viewing it. And to me, if this is God's attempt to reach all of us, I will suffer. I don't like it at all. It's horrible. I've struggled myself with all kinds of different emotions and issues. But if this is God, then bring it on. Bring it on, because he knows what he's doing.
Why do you have a heart for Israel?
Because God put it there. I don't know what else to say. God started it, and then the more I come, the bigger my heart for them gets. This is, now I understand. This is truly God's land. This is God's place. And it's weird because people who come here, they might even come just to visit, which is how I started. But there's something that draws you back over and over again. And then even the people all around the world who've never been here and they love Israel. There's something supernatural going on there. It's not a rational thing. And so that's why it belongs to God, and I belong to God. And so what can I say? I can't argue with any of that.
What's your prayer for Palestinians and for Israelis?
That all the people who, the Palestinians and the Israelis, and I'm not an expert, I just come, I don't live here. But from what I hear from different individuals, not the news, but from people who live here, the people just want to live life together. And then there's this group that is all into this weird control, anger, or they've bought into the dogma they've been fed. But I think even among some of those folks, if they could understand, if they could be reprogrammed, I think people just want to live life together. And so that would be my prayer, that God would have mercy on all those Palestinians and Israelis who just want to live their life, and that he would intervene in this mess. And I think he does, but it's just his ways are not our ways.
What's your website for people who'd like to know more about your work?
Oh, it's bridge2jerusalem.net, except the 2 is a number 2. Bridge number 2 Jerusalem.net.
Okay, Dan, thank you much.
Thank you. It's nice to see you. Merry Christmas and happy birthday.